Hi, everybody. Landry Ethredge here with Ethredge Counseling Group, and I'm very excited to talk with Julia Platt today about chiropractic, her chiropractic work, her chiropractic business on James Island. I was just saying, Julia, how much I love chiropractors and how they've totally changed my life. So welcome. I'm so glad to talk to you today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
I always love to hear an origin story and how people got into the business they're in. I know for
Yes.
me as a therapist, my motivation was like, I wanted to figure myself out and my family out. I was just so curious. I loved understanding how people's brains worked, how their history influences their present. So I'm a little curious about how you got into your work. What's your story? How did you find yourself where you are now?
Yeah, it's a good question. I often share this with my patients too, just so they have an understanding that I've been in their shoes before. And I think it kind of humanizes them a little bit and me a little bit. But I went to college and was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to be in the health industry, maybe medical side of things. And we'll back up a little bit to high school. I was a competitive soccer player pretty much my whole life, and I had two pretty bad concussions within a couple months of each other my senior year of high school. So when I got to college, trying to figure out what I wanted to do, I was having like a lot of brain fog, headaches, migraines. I started to have a lot of gut issues. And my brother was actually in chiropractic school at the time. So he had determined that was his calling. And he said, well, a lot of these issues, what you're talking about, can actually be resolved with chiropractic or helped with. And I said, okay, I'll give it a shot. Like, I'm tired of taking Excedrin every day. So I went and saw this chiropractor. She completely changed my life to a point where she said, why don't you just go visit the college, the chiropractic college, and see if you like it. And I said, okay. So I drove an hour to Spartanburg, South Carolina. I got to Sherman College of Chiropractic, and they started talking about this philosophy of the body can heal itself and you don't have to be on drugs forever. And I was like, this is where I'm meant to be. And this is how I want to be able to serve people, just with the help that I got and the relief that I got. I mean, I don't ever have headaches anymore. My gut issues went away. My brain fog went away. All this stuff that as an 18-year-old you're dealing with, it just completely went away. So that's how I got into it. My brother kind of paved the path a little bit. And here we are, 5 years later.
That I love that. That's so fascinating to me that brain fog could be connected with what? Well, tell me a little bit about this. Okay, what is chiropractic? Because I've been to a few chiropractors, and some I feel like focus more on like maybe like bone adjusting, and some maybe are a little bit more focused on like fascia. What is the scope of chiropracting work?
Yeah. So chiropractic at its core, it's a philosophy, it's a science, and it's an art of
Mm.
really adjusting the segments of the spine to reduce interference to the nervous system. That's kind of it in a nutshell. So chiropractic, the first chiropractic adjustment, this is how chiropractic was even founded. There was this guy, D.D. Palmer, who was into really like energy work, magnetics kind of healing. And he had this janitor that was cleaning his office, and the janitor was deaf. And so Dee Dee Palmer, trying to figure out the body, saw this kind of hump on the janitor's neck, and he said, I'm just going to hit it. I'm going to hit the bump. And after he did, the janitor's hearing was restored.
Oh my goodness.
So that's how chiropractic was founded, with if there's any issues in the spine that's pressing on nerves that go to your ears, your eyes, all the other different organ systems in the body, it can create issues and it can interfere with the mental impulses that are going to those different organ systems. So that's kind of chiropractic in a nutshell. As it's developed and evolved, people have gotten more into fascia, like you said, nutrition, um, adding modalities in there, stretching and things like that. But chiropractic was really founded with adjusting the spine, and then it kind of evolved over time.
That's so interesting. You're talking about the nervous system, which is something I talk about with clients all the time. I'm
Yes.
always doing psycho ed on your nervous system because I don't think a lot of people realize like you have a nerve that's running throughout your whole body, that's controlling
Yes.
different organs and all of these things. So you and I are actually kind of working on this, we're both working with the nervous
Yes.
system in
I love it.
very different ways. Yeah, that's so interesting. Tell me a little bit about like what, if somebody were to come to you with, I don't know, with some symptoms, what does a first appointment look like? Or what are some things that they might expect if they're going to work with you?
Yeah. So the first thing is that I treat my patients like family. So my staff is trained, we do trainings on how we're first and foremost going to greet you by name. We're going to have everything set up for you and laid out for you so that you feel very welcomed into our space. Um, our office is set up in a way that's very open and vibrant. It's warm, so people just immediately feel like this isn't a normal doctor's office where I'm going because I'm sick. This is a place where actual healing takes place, and so that's first and foremost. And as we get into the first appointment, I'll do a consultation. That's a big deep dive, and I'm sure you do a lot of this too, just going into their history. So what they've been through trauma wise, whether it be emotional, physical, chemical even. So we'll go through a history, we'll set some goals. That's one thing I really like to do is what is the pain? What are your symptoms preventing you from doing in your life? So we can actually work on crossing some of those off as we go through the treatment. We'll then do a spinal exam. So I like to feel the entire spine for any sort of, motion issues in there. We'll check for muscle imbalance. And then I do thermography in my office. So I'm actually taking a scan of the spine, which tells us if there's any nerve interference in the nervous system. And then, if necessary, I will take x rays. We do have an x ray unit in house. And my normal kind of protocol is to take x-rays on everyone because I don't like to guess with what I'm doing. I like to be very specific with the issues in there and things like that. So that would be what a first visit would look like. After the first visit, I'd take a look at everything we talked about for the day and basically come up with a game plan to see what's going to work.
I love that you're saying, well, yeah, if you're not, I've heard the phrase, if you're not testing, you're guessing, so I
Yeah.
like that let's see what's really going on. So we can get you feeling better and get you doing those life activities that are meaningful to you again as quickly as possible.
Yes.
Um,
Yep.
I love too that you're so thoughtful about even just when people are first coming in. A lot of times people are like have been struggling with something or persevering through pain for a long time or coming in
Yeah.
really like a hopeless place and just instilling hope at the very beginning, is so
Yeah.
powerful.
It's so important. And people already kind of may have a weird or bad perception of chiropractic. And so they may be walking in scared or nervous about what is this gonna look like? Is she gonna crack me? I've heard it all. So I think just putting that at ease right away also just helps them to open up to me and explain. Really, it helps me help them as best as I can. So having that warm environment is super helpful.
Yes, I have a very close friend who, despite a lot of back pain, will not go to a chiropractor because she's
Yeah.
afraid of like being cracked or something. So
Hmm.
what would you say to somebody who's like, who maybe, yeah, is just feeling kind of scared or not really sure what to expect and afraid that it's going to get worse? It could get worse.
Yeah. So I think the imaging first and foremost. So being able to see what's going on in the spine and leaving things alone that shouldn't be touched, or just having the specificity in there should put people at ease that we are going to be moving bones and putting things back in place that are supposed to be back in place versus just going in and guessing, like you said. In my technique that I practice in the office, I don't twist the neck. I'm not pulling, I'm not yanking, I'm not putting you in a weird position. My technique is gentle, it's specific, and it's not forceful, I guess I would say. So a lot of my patients will be like, "Oh, that was that was it." Like that's not what I saw on YouTube or TikTok, some of these crazy videos you can see. So that tends to put people at ease when they learn about the technique that I do. And I also tell people, I adjust infants. I adjust 6 hour old babies, and
Mhm.
the force is very light and it's different than what you would do with an adult, of course. Um, so I think the technique really matters. Not every chiropractor is the same, and some people are a little bit more forceful with their adjustments or their technique is a little bit different. And that's just not the way I prefer to practice. That's not the way I prefer to be adjusted. So I don't do that with my patients.
I would say only in the last few years did I know, because I don't have children myself, but only in the last
Mhm.
few years did I know that people will bring infants in. What are some issues a new mom might be looking for in their infant that, you might be able to help them with?
So babies obviously can't communicate the same way that we can with language. So what they're going to be wanting to look for, torticollis is a big one. So that's if you've ever seen a baby in a car seat with its head tilted and it can't move, they can't laterally flex their head, which in turn can maybe result in favoring one breast over the other with breastfeeding. That's
Mm.
a big one. Colic with a baby. Um, Digestive issues, babies who just aren't sleeping through the night. Um, Again, going back to the nervous system, their nervous system is just in fight or flight all the time. And so that makes them just really irritable or extra cranky, crying a lot. That's a lot of the times what I see. Constipation a lot with babies too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so even these like organ functions could be affected by something that needs to be adjusted in the spine, is what you're saying, basically.
Totally. And even if children or infants don't have symptoms, moms still like to come in and have their children checked as they're going through different developmental stages with crawling and sitting up and learning to walk, and they're falling a lot. And so parents like to have their kids checked from birth on just to make sure that they are getting taken care of. And if there is an issue, it's resolved before anything or any symptoms would arise. So I see a lot of that as well.
Yeah, because I could see having something go unnoticed for a long time could interfere with like a new developmental stage.
Correct. Yep, exactly.
Are there any interesting, odd symptoms in adults that people may not know could be connected? I mean, for me,
Mm,
you said brain,
yeah.
it's like, oh yeah, I mean, I understand how that could be connected, but are there some interesting symptoms you've seen that were cleared up through adjustment?
I feel like I've seen like any organ system you could think of, I've seen something change. Just yesterday, I had a mom who's had four children come into the office, and we were doing a progress exam. Again, we were tracking some of her goals and her progress at that time. And she was like, "Yeah, my back pain's better. My pubic bone pain is better. But the best thing is that I no longer deal with incontinence." So she
Oh,
was, yeah, she was losing control of her bladder. And she said, since I've been getting adjusted, I've had no issues with that at all after four kids. So
mm,
again, those nerves in your lower back, they're going to the bladder and to the reproductive organs. So that's something very interesting that I've seen quite often. And it goes back to like fertility, even with women who are trying to get pregnant. They've said, "Hey, doc, I'm pregnant and I've done nothing different except come to get adjusted."
wow.
I had a girl start her period for the first time, and she hadn't had a period in months.
Mm.
She's 20. So, yeah, I've seen people's blood pressure come down. They've been able to get off blood pressure medication. I had another patient actually be able to not completely get off, but she has decreased her dose in her antidepressants and anti-anxiety medication.
Love it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just true. We're not separate things. We're our brain and body are one,
Mhm.
emotion. It's all interconnected. There aren't these separate things. And true,
Totally.
and what you're saying too is so in line with my view that our body and brain are designed to heal themselves. There's no such thing as a bad body or a bad brain. If something
Yes,
is hurting or doesn't feel right, it just means there's a roadblock that needs to be moved. And once that's moved, healing can take place. Um,
100%. Yes.
yeah.
I have a poster at the front of my office and it says, the power that made the body heals the body. So I think it just goes back
Say
to,
that
I
again.
think people
Say
have,
that again. I'm writing it down.
it says, the power that made the body heals the body.
I love it.
I think people have really been robbed of this idea that the body can't heal itself or the body can heal itself. They've been robbed of that idea. And so they look to external, sources, medications, things like that. But we don't have a Tylenol deficiency. We have, like you said, a roadblock or an interference in our body that if we get to the root cause of that, then the true healing can take place from within. I
Mhm.
think it's such a beautiful thing.
Yes, I remember. So I want to say it was back in no, maybe it was 2015 or so. I had a lot of back pain that was pretty debilitating. I had trouble walking, could only sit up for short periods of time, couldn't stand up for long periods at all.
Mm,
And I was very discouraged. But the point that I see like my healing began was when my dad told me, Landry, I had given up. I was like, well, I guess I'll be in a wheelchair the rest of my life. Like
mm,
I'm like 20 something. I guess that's just going to be my life. And he's like, Landry, your body is designed to heal. And I just held on to that little bit of hope. Eventually I found a chiropractor, and that's really when things, took off for me. But that belief that the body can heal, no matter how bad things have gotten, healing is possible, was
yes.
what I needed to hear at that moment in order to carry me through, to build up enough resilience until I found a chiropractor who, I trusted and really helped me. I remember my first session with him. I should go. I should tell him. I should tell him how much he changed my life. But I remember
You should. It does
I,
mean a lot.
it was, I mean, I remember my first appointment with him. I stood up and I was just crooked. I couldn't stand up straight. I was just, turned off to the side. Could only do that for about 30 seconds before I had to fall back into my chair. And,
Yeah.
and now I went on a run the other day, like totally life changing.
Yeah.
So,
That's
um,
awesome.
I have so much gratitude for the work that you're doing. And the fun part was that I learned recently that you're literally next door to me. So
I know. Hi, neighbor.
so if people are interested in working with you, how do they find you? What's the best way to contact you? And is there anything that they need to know before reaching out?
Yeah, so I think the easiest way is to just call the office. We are here Monday through Thursday, just not here on Fridays or the weekends. The office number is 843-212-3253. We're also very active on social media, so we respond to DMs pretty quickly. It's just at Elevate Spinal Care. That's Instagram. Same thing with Facebook. You can email us as well. And then our website is just elevatespinalcare.com. And we have a little like inquiry page where you can, if you have any questions or anything like that, you can contact us that way. You can also book an appointment online that way. So it's super easy to get a hold of us. We're here. We get our emails to our phones and stuff. So we're pretty responsive that way.
Awesome. Okay.
And you asked one more thing. Anything we should know?
Yeah.
Um, I think the biggest question we get asked is about insurance. So our office is not in network with insurance. So we're self-pay, but we do provide super bills, which are just big printout receipts of everything, and then they could submit to their insurance to possibly get reimbursed that way.
Yes. Any of my clients are well versed in that. We're also private pay, can supply a super
Yep.
bill.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me.
Absolutely.
I'll have to
Thanks
get
for having me.
hearing a little bit more about what you do, and I feel like I've learned a little bit more to chiropractic than I realized. So, yeah,
That's
thank you so much
awesome.
for your time.
Thanks for letting me be here and chat about chiropractic. I love talking about it. So thank you.
Thanks. All right.